Let me tell you a little story about Phil. You may not know Phil. I don't know, maybe you do. Anyway, he lives over there on Locust Hill Road, about a mile up from the shopping center. No, that isn't Phil. That's Carl Cautious. He's in this story, too. Phil lives next door. He'll be along in a minute. Both of them bought their places about 15 years ago, brand new. They were way out in the country then. Still are, but so is the city. The city's been moving out into the country like crabgrass through a lawn. It wasn't there yesterday, but suddenly it's all around you, like high prices. Phil was talking to me about that not long ago. Not about high prices, about the city.
They've cut a bunch of new roads through the old Martin farm back at my place. And they're putting up a bunch of houses practically back to back. You know what kind of ticket they've got on them? To $35,000 apiece. Now that's just crazy. Who do they think is going to pay that much for a house out this way? Well, this is about a $20,000 neighborhood at best.
Phil's cost 18, and none of the others went for much more. Here comes Phil now. Watch this. Phil's a live one. Never lets any grass grow under his feet, you might say. Not like some guys I could name. Carl's okay, but he's kind of a killjoy. Always talking about inflation as though it were something new. It's been going on, faster or slower, ever since the pioneers. How would you like to work for the kind of pay people were getting back in those days? It didn't cost as much to live then, but no matter. The point is, Carl is always talking about things people would sooner forget. Cautious Carl, the killjoy. Like the time he tried to destroy Phil's peace of mind. It had to do with Phil's house, the house he'd put his whole heart and soul into, along with most of his bankroll. Let me give you some background. I told Phil his was a pretty darn good-looking house for that kind of money. $18,000, that is. If you can remember that far back, that's what he paid for it. He told me there were 3 reasons for that. One of them went clear back to when these places were being built. 33 houses along this stretch here, all at one crack. A builder saves a good chunk of money that way, and he's able to pass that on so as to make quick sales. So these houses were bargains to begin with. It stands to reason that it would have cost more to build Phil's house all by itself. The builder would have had to ask more than $20,000 for it to make any kind of a profit. The second reason Phil gave was the way he operates. First little sign that anything is, well, going a little downhill, he's onto it right then, soon as he can schedule it. He keeps the value up. He looks on it as an investment. Carl's the same way. Takes him a little longer is all. He uses kind of old-fashioned methods. The third reason Phil gave for his house looking like so much more than he had paid was that he'd kept adding to its value over the years. Adding features. For example, he enclosed the porch, finished the second floor, and put in an outdoor patio. A couple years ago, he put in central air conditioning. Did most of the work himself, as usual. Same goes for Carl. In his plodding way, he had kept right up with Phil, one step at a time. Then, one day a rumor got out about Joe Baker, who lived down the street a piece. His house was one of the original lot, but he hadn't done much with it other than to keep it in fair shape. It was just a 15-year-old, $18,000 house. The rumor was that he had sold it for $28,000. Carl had finished his lawn and come over for a cold drink and probably an argument.
28 grand?
Yeah, that's right. I checked it.
Whoever bought it must be off his rocker. Well, that's right up with what they're asking for a lot of the new places on the old Martin farm.
But $28,000 beats $35,000 for practically the same thing, only brand new. How long does anything stay brand new? Just long enough to move in.
but I still think Joe hit it rich. 10 G's worth. Boy, I wish I'd seen the guy first.
No, I don't. Where's Joe gonna live now? Where's he gonna find a house as good as his? What's he gonna do? Add several thousand to what he got and buy back the same thing? Without any shrubbery around it?
Joe doesn't have that kind of money. He's just like us. Nose to the grindstone. Just barely keeps ahead of his bills most of the time. But you're exaggerating. You can't tell me there aren't any good places going for around 18 grand. Well, the woods must be full of them all around us here.
Sold.
Huh?
I'll take yours. Give you a chance to get your money back out of it.
Well, now, don't be silly. I've put at least another 5 into it since then, and I've kept it in tip-top shape.
Right. You've kept its value from sagging. You can do that with maintenance. But there's more to think about. Time alone has been making a house like yours grow more costly to build every year. At least $10,000 more costly in the last 15 years. There's nothing you can do to stop it. That's inflation.
Inflation. You're hip on it.
You remember when you replaced your garage roof last year?
Boy, do I. The materials alone cost what it would have taken to hire it done when the place was new. But that's just one little thing.
So here's just another little thing. Some guy just had to pay $10,000 more for Joe Baker's house than Joe paid for it when it was new. And at that, he saved several thousand over what it would cost him new today. And practically in your own backyard on the old Martin place. Here's a house almost exactly like yours. A development house at that, which makes it cheaper than if you tried to custom build yours right on your lot today, even with all utilities and the foundation already in place. What would your grandfather have paid for an even bigger house than yours? Half as much? Or a third? The cost of building a house goes up every year. Slower sometimes, faster sometimes, but upwards, always. With or without new methods and materials, that's just plain old economic history.
So what? I'm through with all that. Mine's all built.
What if you had to rebuild tomorrow?
I've got you there, crepe hanger. Killjoy. I've got insurance. It was figured for me by experts, only they didn't know it. To begin with, the builder had it insured up to the hilt. They do that, you know. And then when I found that the building and loan wanted me to carry at least the same figure, I thought to myself, check and double check. So I took a free ride on all that expert advice, and it's worked out fine ever since.
You haven't increased it since then?
Why should I? You know how insurance companies do. They just send you a renewal notice every year and you send them a check. Why go looking for trouble?
To avoid it, that's why. Do you think the rest of the world was put here just to keep you out of trouble?
I know what you're getting at. You're talking about a total loss, right? Well, we've got a real good fire department.
How good are they at fighting tornadoes?
Now, don't get ridiculous. You know how tornadoes do. They jump around picking out a house here and there, sometimes without even touching the ones in between. Total losses are extremely rare. I might lose about half my house. My policy covers that much anyway. Well, maybe a third. Not many fires or storms do worse than that. So let's say I have one. My policy covers it, or most of it. But what have I lost? I go on paying premiums, and I still got my coverage. You've got to learn to play percentages if you ever expect to get anywhere in this rat race.
What do you mean by playing percentages? Do you mean that as building costs keep going up, you're going to keep reducing what you'd like to believe is the size of the average fire just to keep from having to increase your insurance? Suppose the costs go right on up. Are you going to decide that the average fire never affects more than a sixth of a house? Or a seventh? Or an eighth? At what point in time are you going to start wondering if the losses average out the way you wish they did? When are you going to start wondering what the smoke from even a small fire does to the rest of a house? When are you going to start wondering how much water it takes to put out a fire and where it goes? When are you going to start wondering how insurance can possibly work the way you wish it did? And when are you going to stop wishing and start wondering? When are you going to stop denying what you're seeing and start noticing what you're seeing? When? When the cost of replacing your house goes up over $100,000?
Well, it was plain to see that old Killjoy Carl was getting all worked up and beginning to exaggerate like the devil. He does that when he's trying to get people to agree with him. What saved the day is the fact that Phil's a tactful host, a real angel. He just smiled serenely and told Carl,
Okay. I'll look into it someday, as soon as I get around to it.
and Phil probably will, too, someday. Now, I hope I haven't given you a bad impression of Carl. We call him Cautious Carl, Killjoy, Crepe Hanger, things like that, but just in fun. He can't help it. That's just the way he is. As a matter of fact, Carl has a good sense of humor in a quiet kind of way. He's the guy who suggested to Phil that he dress up his mailbox to take advantage of his box number. Phil's got a wonderful sense of humor, too. So he went right along with the gag. Phil's Paradise, right behind the 8-ball. Pretty clever. Well, I better be getting along. I'll see you around. Take care of yourself now.